Alright guys, let's come again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Kenny responds to a potential CDL return, confirming that offers have come through his letterbox over the last few weeks, but he's turned them down for various reasons, mainly due to the location he would have to relocate to if he wanted to return to the Call of Duty League. He does not, however, rule out the possibility of coming back at some point if there was a team interested in Kenny trying to turn their team around. It still seems after several difficult stints, arguably in a row, the players still rate him on a level where opportunities could be around the corner. Kenny though says no, if that doesn't happen, a coaching opportunity could be in the works. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Of course, we've got the Challengers Cups and the Elites happening today, tomorrow, or yesterday, today. And then we have the Challengers Cups this weekend involving, well, some former players. So Trey at Zero was talking about coming back with these boys, and it looks like they're all signed up. Jerd is in Australia, so he's not going to be playing, but they've got some cracked 18-year-old instead, and he's going to call him Jerd Tawny. So there you go. That's the strategy. Bance has been grinding ranked as well to get ready, but I'm not sure that it's especially going all that well. Wanted to start, though, mainly with this clip from JCab. He doesn't say much. It's a 15-second clip, but let me play it, and then we'll talk about it.
I think it's coming. Is Shotzzy the GOAT if he wins 4 rings? I mean, probably. If he wins a 4th, yeah, I'd say so.
Always a challenging conversation to compare eras. We talked about this the other day when JCat was kind of comparing Simp and Shotzzy to Crim and Scump, but this is an interesting question, to be honest. Is Shotzzy the GOAT if he wins another ring here this upcoming season? It depends, I think, on how you judge the importance of rings, and it's a difficult debate to have. I think there's some people, probably including myself, that feel like getting past Crim and Scump, especially even arguably Karma, is going to take a little bit longer, almost regardless of the circumstances. But if Shotzzy was to win back-to-back-to-back World Championships, of course it would also be Dashy doing the same, which would not put him a million miles away from a similar conversation. Obviously not the GOAT status precisely, but you know, back-to-back-to-back World Championship rings is completely ludicrous, of course, and it would have to accelerate you dramatically up the rankings. Would it be enough is a question, because look, Crim won 38 championships across so many years and different team iterations. He was on both of the dynasties, Complexity and OpTic. Again, are some of those championships kind of cheese? Possibly, you know, that's a matter for debate. Of course, back then there were way more tournaments. Seasons like Advanced Warfare, we had 14 tournament wins up for grabs. Nowadays, we have 6 at a push, right? So getting in that kind of ballpark of wins with Scump and Karma and Crim, that is nowadays almost impossible. But maybe you'd think that you need to get to, like, I don't know, 15 or 20, and then with all the rings to get into the conversation, possibly. Whether you consider Karma's post-playing career as well, the fact that he's now up to 5, how you also consider the online rings as well, because Shotzzy has one from Dallas Empire in Modern Warfare 19, so does Crim, so does Clay in that conversation as well. So yes, I think it depends how much you value the World Championship, really, and of course it is the most important tournament. In fact, if you ask most of the players, would you rather win, I think they actually asked this to the FaZe boys, would you rather win all of the majors or champs and win none of the majors? They will say champs. Now, I think Simp actually said that he'd prefer to win all the majors and not champs, but presumably you'd make more money that way or something. I don't exactly know if you would come second at champs, but I think it's more, that question is more psychological. It's like, if you won all 4 majors and then lost champs, like that'd be a worst possible outcome psychologically. So of course it would be better to lose all the majors and win champs, you would presume, but does that mean that champs is 5, 4, 6, 10 times more valuable than a regular tournament? Maybe not necessarily, but it's definitely more valuable. And at the end of the day, when people look back, hopefully people are still thinking and talking about competitive COD in, I don't know, a decade's time. It's a great scene, but who knows what the future holds, of course. Things come and go. But when people look back, will they remember Major 2 winner 2024, or will they just remember who won champs that year, right? So I think that's the debate. There was also another scrim set last night. So Bush played the Gentlemates. This was a 4-1 to Gentlemates. The Blackheart was 250-240, pretty close, but indeed it was the Gentlemates boys that got over the line here. But good scrims, right? Because they're blacklisted from scrims, as we know, for the next few days, at least for this week of practice. So they've got to play challengers teams. They also lost the Colossus, actually. This one went to Abe and the boys on Bush. Pretty impressive performance there. Obviously, Abe is the Burger King of Stage 1 and not so great recently. It's an interesting scrim set for sure, but in the end, it was job done for the Gentlemates. They win the hard point at least 4-1. They took the Scar as well, 250-198. But solid scrims and good reps in for the Bush, all things considered, against a team that was not long ago considered the best hard point team in the game. But with OpTic's recent run, at least in scrims and online, you might have to argue that right now OpTic are the team to beat in that game mode. But let's talk about potential roster changes, because this is 04's recent stat lines. Of course, not great on FaZe as of late. And yes, he's an SMG player. If they do want to make a change, they would have to contemplate where they want to go with that decision. If you're FaZe, a Lurqxx has typically this season run an AR, but there's a feeling that he could run a sub. You could also flex Drazah around. That's not an impossibility either. And given that they paid $20,000 to get a Lurqxx onto their sub bench before any other team did, then you would think they would be unwise to bypass him and go for some other option. That, at least psychologically, would make more sense, right? And this is the talk about Capsidal the other day, when Don was like, look, I think Cap could be a good option for FaZe, and he might be right, but also you've just spent all this money to sign a Lurqxx to your sub bench. You're really just going to go and get another player for more money instead? Maybe the right decision, but something that doesn't make much sense. I don't as well know what a Lurqxx's situation is when it comes to the visa, because understand he's on like a student visa out to the States. There was a feeling that, okay, he's going to join FaZe, but it's going to take maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks to get that contract and that visa turned around. You know, he might have to go back to Germany to get it all sorted at the embassy, I don't know, and then come back to the States. I'm not sure what that timeline has been or what that looks like, or whether that's all sorted and whether he can just play for FaZe. But FaZe surely would have been very unwise to just have signed a Lurqxx. The team got better, probably because to some degree of that pressure that he put on from the sub bench with the aura that he had after that one challenge as elite. And then we're like, oh yeah, well, we don't need to bother anymore with a Lurqxx because the team's fixed now. But that would be unwise if they've actually done that. Presumably they've got it sorted so he can play, but I don't know 100% right now. So anyway, overall's been struggling. The question has been what teams do need, could continue to need changes. So Kenny talks about this on stream and discusses some options. And he says he had a bunch of options. And this, I know that fans will find this remarkable because it's like, well, hang on a second. Kenny was part of the 0-18 run last year on OpTic. He joined Rocker. He was okay, he was better, he had like a 1. It wasn't great, the team didn't really do any better with Ken than they did with PaulX, so it's raised his stock slightly, but probably not drastically. At least people figured out when he was on GT last year, he could at least shoot straight, but he still wasn't playing that well. And then this year he joins Thieves, and most of his series were fine, were competent, maybe even good. Some of his series were so bad that it was untenable to keep him around, and it feels like the team is in a better spot now with Nium than they were with Kenny. Certainly they needed something of a change, but players still rate Kenny highly, right? It is what it is, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. And as a result, Kenny still has interest. Now, you'd imagine it's not going to be, well, it's not going to be from OpTic, right? That's pretty clear. But pretty much any other team, it's still not an impossibility. We believe Kenny had interest from Toronto, and this I think is what he's getting at here, because he talks about the location, potential requirements to move, and that not really being a consideration for him right now.
You know, it's not like I'm going out on no offers, like I'm not playing like stage 2 because of no offers, none of this. It's just like I'm saying no. I will say this though, because I am about to start doing more content. I am open to coaching. I don't know if that's like CDL coaching, but challengers coaches kind of sounds interesting to me. But I don't know. It would have to be the right situation. Trying to be you and enjoy it at the same time. Ain't nothing wrong. Exactly. That's just all it is. That's all, that's all it is. I probably could confidently say I'm probably not going to be playing for stage 2 for sure. That's just my decision. I've had a bunch of different options. I feel like the main option that I wanted to go with, the location just not really, is a no-no for me. And I feel like the other options are kind of like, and I kind of don't like, I feel like the way I went out, like, I don't think, like, I don't want to rush back into playing right now. But, like, I'm super enjoying doing, like, the watch party and doing content. And, like, actually being able to stream and, interact, I guess, with y'all. I feel like that's, like, the part that I enjoy about it. Getting to be myself on stream, getting to do this. Like, how these times when you're on these certain teams, you don't get to really be yourself for the most part. It's such a hard thing because I don't think I want to stop playing forever. I just think right now, like, I want to take a break from it, bro. If it is the last time I play, it is the last time I play. Sometimes it is what it is.
So if we look up and down the league in Major 2 so far, this is what we find, of course. OpTic. He's been off Thieves. Gentlemates have had one bad weekend. They're not going to blow it up in the immediate future. G2, of course, they've been looking reasonably solid as well. But as he says, multiple options on the table. So after Major 1, after things all concluded there, this was how things looked after the online stint. If we actually look at the LAN results, it looks more like this. So these are the teams that had a really torrid time back at Major 1. Obviously, Ravens, I think, were like, Ken, do you wanna come and play for 20 grand? And he's like, no. So the teams that are remote, first of all, probably not going to be a consideration for Kenny. And you might argue, oh, well, he's lost the drive and he doesn't, which to some degree I'm sure is true. Like if Kenny was 18 and cracked again, then I'm sure he would be thinking, well, whatever opportunity, I can go and prove myself and all this. But in Kenny's position, he's got family, he's got friends in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think he's getting married this year, right? So like there's things that make sense for him to stay in Dallas. That's where he would like to stay, and for very understandable reasons. Given he's had a great career, he recognizes that, obviously he will realize that the best of his crew is behind him, right, with the world championships that he's won on his individual level, and recognizing that, well, he still could be, I think, a competitive force, potentially, on the right squad, and I'm sure he has the confidence in that as well. He recognizes that it doesn't make sense to go dramatically out of his way and change his lifestyle hugely in order to keep going when there are other alternatives. Could Falcons have been a possibility as well? Falcons, to me, is the team. I don't know the dynamic with Pred, whether they want to do that again. To me, that would be the only hurdle, really, because there is definitely a world where Kenny in there, either Kismet to the sub, maybe alongside Pred. Look, I actually do rate Xnid. I genuinely think he's an important aspect to this team, and I know that they want to keep the Saudi thing. But Falcons are paying Cell and Pred an obscene amount of money to win championships. And if that's not happening, and I don't know, Cell and Pred are convinced that Kenny would be the man to turn them right, I'm sure that they would at least consider the opportunity. It's a lot of money on that team, potentially, and it's based in Texas. That would be an ideal scenario, I think, for Kenny. Now, Toronto, we're pretty sure that is the team that did speak to him. But I just don't think it would make sense for Kenny to move out. At least, it could in certain circumstances. It actually would be a really interesting team. If he'd have come in for Insight and it was JoeDeceives, Kenny, Kips, and CleanX, that is a rapid-paced team. And I can see the logic in it, really. If Toronto were paying more money and they weren't based in Toronto, but even if they were based in Toronto, they're paying more money, maybe at some point it might become worth it for Kenny. But it doesn't look like that was a consideration for him, really. But yeah, he did have an opportunity there. As far as I'm aware, that was a possibility for him, but the location kind of pushed him away. He's not going to be going back to Thieves. And that's pretty much it, really. And I know that there's Boston as an opportunity. I think most of those guys are based in the Texas area. Cloud9, Ravens, of course, poverty, they're remote anyway. Surge, poverty, remote. So, and Heretics is never going to happen. So, the options in the league are relatively limited. I think from Kenny's perspective, it's okay, Toronto was an option, maybe even still is an option, but he doesn't want to do it. And then I guess you're just waiting for the Falcons opportunity. Or FaZe. I think that's the other conversation, because the FaZe boys, I mean, they used to be based out of Atlanta. I think they are based out of their facility in Dallas, aren't they now? So that would make some sense as well. Man, could you? I mean, Kenny and Drazah were meant to duo up on Toronto. That was the rumor at the start of the season. That didn't happen. You know, the idea of Kenny like replacing Draz, or even running it back to World War, or to Vanguard, sorry, when Kenny and Draz were the flex SMG combo, and for a lot of that year, Drazah was the SMG and Kenny was the flex, and then notably towards the end of the year in Vanguard on Thieves, they swapped it around. Kenny became the sub, Drazah became the flex, and the rest is history. They won champs. So I'm not saying that FaZe need that precisely, but Kenny for 04 and put Kenny on the sub, I don't know, like, there will be people out there that will say that's where Kenny should be in terms of his role. So I'll just leave that with you for the time being, but very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.